Hello, my name is ShannonJones. Thank you for choosing to listen to my contribution for this year's MSc Counselling Research Conference. This is my research project. Counsellors respond to the era of #TraumaTok. For this presentation, I will be covering the key elements of the project, starting with the existing background on the topic and the aims of the current study. Then I will be sharing the methodology used and the findings that were produced. Then towards the second half, I will be sharing what these findings mean, evaluating the project and looking at how future research and other real-life implications can continue work on the topic of trauma-focused content. So let's start by taking a look at the existing literature. Previous research has explored the link between social media and mental health, looking at the potential benefits and risks associated. These have included the development and maintenance of relationships, developing emotional support networks, and having access to resources. However, increased levels of anxiety and low mood have also been recognised as effects of social media usage, as well as decreased body satisfaction. More specific for this presentation is the social media content about mental health. Such content may be created by mental health professionals or the general public, and can refer to psychoeducational information, personal anecdotes, or signposting. While the viewing frequencies for such content is high across the board, individuals with mental health difficulties are more likely to engage with mental health-focused content. So what are the effects of engaging with mental health-focused content? Let's start by taking a look at self-diagnosis. This is when individuals self-prescribe diagnostic labels without the input of a professional. This can sometimes make it easier to relate to others and create a sense of identity and belonging through understanding their personal experiences and behaviours. However, there are also risks associated, with a close link between individuals who self-diagnose and seeking inappropriate treatment, minimising the severity of symptoms, or to over-pathologise typical human experiences. The link between social media and self-diagnosis has been highlighted as an area needing further research. Closely linked to the concept of social media and self-diagnosis is the idea of coping strategies. Mental health content online can support viewers in finding new ways to cope with their mental health challenges. For example, the researchers recognised the validation and support from engaging with online mental health communities. Next, it is important for us to be considering the effect of trivialisation. The trivialisation of mental health makes the experience and treatment of mental health disorders appear easier than the reality. Mental health is much more likely to be trivialised on social media compared to physical health. However, the trivialisation of trauma online has not specifically been explored. Through trivialising these experiences, individuals can be prevented from seeking support and can lead to the overlooking of important biopsychosocial factors. Additionally is the element of raising awareness and learning about mental health. Many mental health content creators work to enhance the public's understanding of mental health topics, including mood and anxiety. However, very little of the psychoeducation available online about mental health has any source of verification or association with an accredited professional, highlighting potential issues around accuracy. Regardless of evidence or accreditation, content creators who share psychoeducation are typically assumed to be adequately trained by those who watch their content. Now, let's refocus onto the topic of trauma. Trauma has been defined as a combination of ongoing biopsychosocial responses to adverse events, such as abuse, natural disasters, or the loss of a loved one. Despite 70% of the population experiencing a form of trauma, approximately only 5.6% of these individuals will develop post-traumatic stress disorder, known as PTSD. This is the clinical diagnosis for symptoms of trauma persisting for 6 months or longer after the event. While mental health-focused content covers a variety of topics, trauma has been recognised as a popular theme. For example, hashtags like TraumaTok is a hashtag used to identify trauma-focused content and has received over 5 billion views online. Similar to the previously described mental health-focused content formats, Trauma-focused content can also present as psychoeducational information, personal narratives and signposting. However, specific to trauma-focused content are trauma tests. This refers to the content which provides the viewer with prompts to consider themselves in the context of trauma symptoms, encouraging the self-diagnosis of trauma disorders. Previous research has found that when content is posted on social media about trauma, the effects on the viewer's mental health are considered by less than half of the creators. The topic of online content about mental health issues has been highlighted as a topic of expected growth due to the ongoing increase in social media usage. While previous research has explored the opinions of counsellors towards other forms of mental health content on social media, such as mood disorders, there currently is no empirical evidence available regarding the trauma-focused content from a counsellor's perspective. So, what did the current study aim to achieve? This has been an exploratory study, aiming to offer further insight into the understanding of mental health-focused content on social media, more specifically content about trauma. Furthermore, the current study concentrated specifically on the experiences and perspectives of counsellors and looking at the effects of such content on clients. Let's take a look at the methodology of this exploration. The participants for this study were all qualified counsellors, or else towards the end of their counselling training. This was important as the research team particularly wanted to collect the opinions of those actively working with clients. My colleagues and I created an online questionnaire, utilising both closed and open-ended questions. This allowed for the collection of quantitative data to contribute to the first empirical evidence of this nature. The open-ended questions allowed for qualitative data, offering further depth to our research. This questionnaire consisted of 50 questions and covered key themes. These included the opinions of counsellors towards trauma content, the experiences of counsellors of viewing trauma content, and recommendations for counsellors working within issues of social media. Following a thorough ethics application, the current study was approved by the Ethics and Governance Committee at Bangor University under the School of Psychology and Sports Science. The methodology all complied with the guidelines provided by the NCPS and BACP governing boards. One of the findings of this study demonstrated that overall, the participants believe there is a high chance of clients self-diagnosing trauma in themselves if they are viewing trauma-focused content. 47.83% believe social media does encourage self-diagnosis. 39.13% believe it sometimes is encouraging. This contrasts with only 4.35% who believe social media does not encourage self-diagnosis. The study also found that the majority of the participants believe that social media oversimplifies trauma. This was vastly higher than the belief that trauma is overcomplicated. 73.91% believe trauma-focused content is oversimplified, compared to only 17.39% believing the content is overcomplicated. Next, the study found that there were mixed levels of confidence among the participants in how they would respond to the topic or issues relating to social media and trauma within a counselling setting. The majority of the participants fell between the ranges of slightly to moderately confident. The qualitative data from the current study presented some key themes that the participants raised. The topic of self-diagnosis was a common topic with these participants, more specifically misdiagnosis, offering quotes about unnecessary pathologising and being overly focused on labels. Additionally, concerns were raised about mistreatment. Participants highlighted that people may not seek therapeutic support when needed if they feel they could treat themselves, or else may seek inappropriate mental health support based on information from social media. Finally, the topic of accuracy was raised by over a quarter of the participants, recognising that a lack of scientific backing to the information shared can be problematic. The participants highlighted how the credibility of sources and validity of information is important when considering trauma-focused content. So let's take a look at what these findings mean and what the context of these findings are. Let's start with the topic of self-diagnosis. Through exploring the opinions of counsellors on the association between trauma-focused content and self-diagnosis, the current research begins to address a gap in the existing literature as identified by T and Islam in 2024. Many participants highlighted risks they associated between people self-diagnosing trauma, which included the unnecessary pathologising of human experiences and seeking inappropriate treatment. The concerns are supported by previous literature, with both trainee and experienced counsellors alike recognising that over-pathologising is a growing issue. Similarly, accuracy of information was an important topic recognised in the current study. These concerns link in with previous research, only with more specificity, whereby highlighting over 80% of mental health information available on TikTok as being labelled as inaccurate and misleading with a lack of credible sources. This research is supported by the opinions of the counsellors collected in the present study. The findings of this study also contribute to the literature gap regarding the trivialisation of mental health in comparison to physical health, recognising trauma as another trivialised topic online. In alignment with the previous findings, most of the participants in the current research study also expressed the belief that trauma is oversimplified on TikTok as well as other online spaces. Let's take a look at evaluating the current study, starting with the strengths. As the first study considering trauma-focused content from the perspective of counsellors, including their experiences and opinions, the current study offers a new perspective. The unique participant pool hold experiences and education which allow them to offer an insight that non-counselling participants would not be able to contribute. Additionally, the current study addresses previous literature gaps as recognised by other researchers. This has included the importance of continuing to understand mental health content online as it continues to grow as a genre. The importance of continuing to explore the simplification of mental health topics online. And also, it has been suggested that exploring mental health focused content in relation to therapy is an important area for researchers to explore. Additionally, the current study has collected data that supports the opinions that have been previously shared within public domains, such as suggestions for social media regulations and raising awareness campaigns. However, as with all research, the current study is not without its limitations. Starting with a sample size, with only 23 participants due to associated time restraints in the recruitment process, the generalisation of the study is limited. Generalising the findings of the current study could have been beneficial in understanding how trauma-focused content is perceived across the wider counselling profession. However, while the generalisability of the study is limited, as an exploratory study, the current research offers a foundation for future research to further delve into the topics raised and support the findings with a more robust sample size. Additionally, due to the self-reporting nature of the study, there may have been unintentional effects from varying interpretation of keywords in the questions. For example, the interpretation of words used within the questionnaire where definitions were not provided included confident, credible, and accuracy. However, the length of the questionnaire was in consideration when providing information to the participants, aiming to avoid participant fatigue due to participant fatigue being linked to participants failing to complete questionnaires in their entirety and offering incomplete answers. Another limitation is the online delivery of the questionnaire and utilising social media as a recruitment tool. It is possible that individuals active on these platforms may share similar levels of online awareness. However, social media usage is common among counsellors, and therefore this may not be a reasonable factor to avoid in the sampling process. This may be a variable for future research to explore as to whether counsellors with a social media presence view trauma-focused content online any differently to those who do not behave in such online behaviours. So let's take a look at how the current findings can be utilised and applied to future research. One approach future research could take, grounded in the findings of the current study, is to examine the opinions of counsellors towards the different formats of trauma-focused content, such as comparing the opinions towards psychoeducational videos versus personal narratives. Examining the influence of trauma-focused content formats can inform responsible content creation and platform governance. This knowledge can also enhance mental health professionals' awareness of clients' online experience and support clients in developing healthier digital engagement strategies. An alternative route for future research could be the testing of the counsellor opinions. This could be completed through recruiting individuals who have viewed trauma-focused content and exploring their beliefs and behaviours. This could address whether counsellors have accurate concerns regarding client interactions with trauma-focused content. If disparities are identified, then the reasons for such differences could further be explored. Similarly, let's take a look at what real-life implications could follow from the current study findings. While previous research has addressed how trauma-informed approaches could reduce traumatisation from social media, the addressing of misinformation about trauma is currently lacking in exploration. One way this could be actioned is through changes to social media regulations. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, disclaimers were used to inform viewers if social media content was lacking credibility, to reduce the spreading of misinformation about the virus. This could be a technique applied to help reduce the misinformation and trivialisation online about trauma. Additionally, the participants' recognition of the oversimplification of trauma online could be a basis for raising social awareness about the definition and presentation of trauma. This could also be awareness raised specifically among counsellors regarding the potential lack of understanding of trauma among counselling clients, which could cause clients to potentially overlook traumatic experiences. The current findings could also form the basis for future continued professional development. There are currently no requirements for counsellors to undergo training regarding social media related issues. However, with the growing use of online platforms, the current findings indicate the benefit of opportunities for counsellors to increase their general confidence levels when engaging with clients regarding mental health focused content. Thank you for taking the time for watching my video. If you are watching during the live dissertation conference, please leave any questions about the study in the comment section below. Alternatively, you can find my contact details on the current slide, and please feel free to reach out with any questions. Thank you again for your attention.